Sounds good. Well, let me get a sip of my tea, my fancy blackberry tea, and I'll be good to go.
All right, word.
All right. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. Let's do it.
I figured we were talking about going over some technique stuff, maybe some hardware stuff, maybe some favorite drummers. So I guess let's get started on the technique. I think the most important part about drumming technique is of course timing. Owen, hey buddy, welcome, man. Good to see you, buddy. Owen is a guy from my streams, a friend of mine.
Nice. What's up, Doug?
So, a lot of people I feel talk about technique. Are there any specific techniques that you're practicing at the moment?
I would say traditional is something that I try to keep an eye on and try to keep it going, but it's like the longer time that is in between using the technique, the worse it gets. So
Sure.
it actually I really need to work, and then you got was it Ralph Nader? You got BYOS.
Right.
You got these guys that are like who is it? Muse Grooves, Amanda Muse.
Sure.
I think that's her name. These people that are just like completely tearing it up, and then also like just high school drum lines and everything in general. So I would like to, I don't know. It's kind of like setting up the kit left-handed. That's almost like a technique.
Right.
It's not really a grip, but it's like a form of a technique. So I would really like to work on more traditional.
Sure. Yeah, I think traditional is cool. A lot of drummers can play traditional at a very high level. And that reminds me of JoJo Mayer. JoJo Mayer plays almost exclusively traditional. He's probably my second favorite player. I love JoJo Mayer.
That is such a great point. Yeah, his nerve is just mind-bendingly good.
Yeah. I was watching some of his stuff, and he does a lot of, I guess, talking pieces where he goes over the mindset and the different functionalities of technique and things. And one of the things that I found interesting is he goes over how he feels that technique is better to be thought of as a means to an end, right? You have a goal that you want to achieve as a player. You want to be able to play X, Y, and Z, and the way that you achieve that is going to be your technique. So what technique are you going to use? What vehicle are you going to use to get to your end goal?
Right. That makes sense.
He talks about his, the push-pull technique and the Moeller method and the multiple bounce roll and the freehand technique and all of these things. And I think it's really, really fascinating stuff. But at the end of the day, it's important to not get, caught up in the weeds of technique and understand instead that technique is just a means to an end, It's the vehicle you use to get to your goal, So you shouldn't get necessarily caught up in mastering every technique, because if the technique you're trying to master doesn't accomplish what you're trying to learn, then there's no point, If I'm a jazz drummer and I'm only ever going to play jazz, then I don't really need to master 250 BPM ankle strokes with the feet, because that's not going to get me to my goal, right?
That's another thing about a technique is too, that's a really good point, thinking of it like what kind of technique you use for your foot. Because there's a lot of discussion about what's optimal for sound. Like Dave Elich talks a lot about not burying the beater.
Yep.
And that's a mind job, because there's some, like, especially the stuff you do, like the multi-pedal stuff, which, by the way, I'm actually going to be doing a video shortly with the Akira Jimbo foot, like the moon block mount. Right. I've had one for years and I've never used it, but I have an idea. I think you'll really, really like it.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
The same thing, like people are heel up and you can tell their foot, this is their calf, and their calf is just like rock solid. Yep. They have their foot angled up. They're not relaxed, or people bury the beater, or you have people, I saw somebody with their heel on the carpet and playing fast double bass, like their toe was in the middle of the footboard.
Right.
And I was just like, I don't understand. And then you got the swivel technique. You got some people play, I don't know anybody who plays exclusively heel down, but it's kind of the same thing. There's not a name for it. It's not German and French and match and traditional and all that, but there are also a lot of different foot techniques, and it's kind of like, I agree with you 100%. With the feet, if you're getting the desired outcome, who cares? I mean, like it's
sure,
it is, right?
I have a lot of people that come into my stream that talk about heel toe, and that there's like such a huge misnomer with heel toe technique. People assume that if you want to play really fast stuff with your feet, you need to play heel toe, and that's not the case. Heel toe is just one of many ways you can you can get doubles with your feet.
Yeah.
Not better. It's also not worse. It's just one of multiple ways. I practiced heel toe for a while. I don't use it at the moment. I use more of like a ball of the foot. So the technique that I use is, I guess my instructor taught it to me as the slide technique, but it's not, once you get really good at it, you don't really slide your foot, but basically you generate a stroke with the thigh, and then the second stroke is generated with the calf muscle. So it's like thigh, calf, right?
It's like Moeller.
It's kind of like Moeller, yeah. It's like the opposite of heel toe. It's like backwards from heel toe,
Yeah.
Which is not to say that heel toe is bad. Heel toe is great. It's just, you don't necessarily need 50 different ways to play doubles with the feet. Just pick one, Pick, if you like heel toe, that's great. Go with heel toe. If you like the slide technique that I use, then use that. I use the technique that Thomas Lang uses because I'm a big fan of Thomas Lang. And that's what he does. It's just multiple toe strokes. The first one generated by the thigh, the second one generated by the calf.
Yeah.
And it's really, really useful. But, you mentioned the swivel technique. I've been trying to find some more information about that. So are you familiar with Derek Roddy? You know who he is?
Yeah.
So Derek offers Skype lessons online for anybody. Anybody can do it. So I emailed him, got his email off of his website, and I emailed him, and I did some Skype lessons with him once. And he's a really cool guy, dude. Really, really nice, really friendly, and super, super good. And I remember watching a video where George Callias was going over swivel technique. And
that's the guy I was thinking of. Yeah. That guy's the master. Yeah.
He's nuts. And he was talking about swivel technique because he's known for using swivel technique all the time. And he said at the end of his video that he's getting away from swivel technique because he felt like it was hurting his knee joints. And so because you're like putting pressure on that ball of your knee and then rotating it back and forth super, super fast over long periods of time, right? And so I asked Derek about that, and Derek said that he felt like that wasn't the case, and that was only due to George Callias' motorcycle accident. So George was in a motorcycle accident.
Interesting. Okay.
And then I asked Thomas about it. Thomas Lang does feel like it messes with your knees, and so I've got conflicting information from a lot of different high-level players, and I'm not really sure what to think of it. I've not spent a lot of time practicing swivel myself, but I find it interesting. Have you ever messed with the swivel at all?
No, but I'm actually working on, I'm not working on it because I don't think I have the right pedal. If I can get a longboard pedal, like PDP just came out with one that's pretty, that would work, but like an Axis longboard pedal, something like that.
Right.
You can do heel toe, kind of like this motion.
Right.
And I think I got it. I just don't have the right pedal. And I also don't know the musical application. So that's another good point talking about technique is like, okay, Jojo Mayer can roll with any limb. He can roll on his hands and on his feet.
Yeah.
But like, what if you're like a church drummer? If you're a church drummer, they're going to be like, well, can you roll on your right foot? It's like, you're never going to use that. So what's the application? What's the application of Moeller? It's nice for like really fast jazz or like maybe blast beats or something. That's a really efficient way of getting that done. But no, to answer your question, no. But I do have a way of actually looking at Moeller or swivel technique. If you sit on a stool, I feel like if I wanted to practice it, sit on a stool where your feet are completely off the ground, right, and then just work this motion with your foot back and forth, like you're just until you have that kind of like when you do like it's almost like a vibration. But there's this guy on Instagram that has like his hand is just like it just vibrates. It's like a twitch, and he can roll really really fast
with his feet.
Just with his hands, but he does like a closed single stroke roll on like a pillow or something.
Right.
And that's kind of like that same thing. So I don't really know the application. I mean, I guess like the band I'm in right now doesn't really require a whole lot of really fast double bass. So there's not really a practice. So it's kind of like I want to be able to run fast. It's kind of like turning drumming into a sport, which is actually something we could probably do a topic on like later, in a different podcast. Like drumming becoming a sport, like the blast stuff like that. Like that's a whole nother conversation. But let's talk about licks. What are you working on right now?
Well, at the moment, I've been practicing a lot of crossover stuff.
Oh yeah, I saw that video you posted today was dope, man. The transcription is super clean.
Thank you. I think crossovers are super underutilized. Uh, and in a lot of ways, they can be inefficient because sometimes instead of doing a crossover, you could just lead with the left hand. You know, so many drummers are so opposed to leading with the left hand or the left foot, you know. But there's some stuff for crossovers that you genuinely have to do a crossover to do, you know. And
Yeah.
I think it's something that I want to explore. I'm going to do some YouTube videos on it. I'm going to do some more Instagram stuff on it. I think there's a lot of potential for me personally because I've spent very little time learning crossovers. So I really want to do a lot of that. I'm going to focus on some right over left, some left over right. I really like going from hi-hat to floor tom because it's a big stretch.
Oh yeah.
So it looks really visually impressive, and it
Yeah.
also sounds really cool. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. What about you?
Well, I mean, I got the idea to do the it's like a 5/6 groove. So it's eighth note triplets on the left foot, but then a quintuple pattern on the hands. So
Right.
it's kind of hard to explain, but I'm trying to do like complete independence, and then try to mess with it so we can see, so I can see what the different textures sound like. Because if I have like kind of what you do, like I can move my left foot, like if bass drum was 1 and the hi-hat was 2 and the block, the moon block was 3, I could go 1 2 3 1 2 3 or 3 2 1 3 2 1 across those 8 note triplets, and then the hands are playing whatever. But after a while, you don't even think about. I mean, that's the only way it works. You can't think about that foot. So I was thinking of doing that, and then also doing 1 2 1 2 or 2 3 2 3 voices, like
Sure.
you know, like that sort of thing, back and forth,
Yeah.
and then have the groove. And that, I think that's a lot of what that's definitely a very. I don't even know if that's Thomas Lang because it's not complicated because I'm not doing paradiddles between, you know, but there are like downbeat of 1 on the kick every time, so it'll be easy to navigate. You know, you'll have the feet nice and clean, like
Sure.
foot
Yeah.
on 1 and then whatever voice on 1. But the 5/6 sounds dope as fuck. I mean, it sounds really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
Again, there's no musical application, but I'm trying to get to that. And then also, I think I told you about this video. I want to do like linear flow. So using 3 different patterns just to keep it, because the lesson you're going to lose people after a while if you get too complicated. So
Sure.
right, left kick and right, left kick with the 2 lefts ghosted, and choosing between the, and maybe like right kick or left kick.
Sure.
So like groups of 2, groups of 3, or groups of 4, and then figuring out how to, okay, I'm listening to a jam, and they're like Nick Sibley on the drums, and you have to play a drum solo, but you want to keep it kind of like a pocket drum solo. You don't want to go crazy and start doing 3/3s and trash canning and shit
Yeah.
like that, you know.
Yeah.
You can kind of do this linear flow where it still kind of sounds a little bit funky, but not anything like crazy where you're like, well, I lost time. Because my biggest thing is I lose the time, then I forget where the 1 is.
Yeah.
And I get really nervous because I can't bring the band back in, or I can't hit the 1.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
because I'm just thinking about it.
For sure. Well, I you know that brings that reminds me of something. I was watching some stuff of that Dave DeCencio was playing one time. He was doing this video on YouTube, and he talks about counting while he's practicing. So he'll be practicing, you know, this super complicated, you know, non-linear kind of funky groove, and he'll also be counting 1 2 3 4 out loud. You know, boom, ka to 3 4 a 1 2. You know. And I've started trying to do that when I practice, and good Lord in heaven, is it hard? It's super hard.
Oh, wait, so you're playing something that's more complicated, but you're saying 1 2 3 4 out loud while you do it?
Assuming you're in a 4/4 signature, yeah. So you're playing something with your hands and your feet, just any kind of groove, and you're speaking audibly 1 2 3 4 with your
Oh
mouth.
my gosh.
It's really
That's
hard.
crazy.
You know, it's hard for 2 reasons. One, you know, it's just hard. But the main reason is that you're adding really a 5th limb, you know, because you're doing something with your right hand, your left hand, your right foot, and your left foot. Now you're adding your voice. That's a 5th thing. So now you're adding 25% more work onto what your brain is already having to do.
Right.
That makes it harder. But what's really good about it is that it forces your brain to constantly be aware of where the quarter notes are. So if you can learn a groove while saying 1 2 3 4, or learn a complicated rhythmic phrase, or the linear stuff you're talking about, and you can get to where you can play it while counting out loud at the same time, your timing and your awareness of where you are within the context of the meter increases exponentially. It takes longer. You know, you got to practice it more, but it's so good, so good.
That's actually that reminds me of when I instructed drumline and having them say it. I always said say it before you play it, especially for like marching bass drum and you're just doing splits.
Right.
Like if your mind is in the right place, you should be able to say the count and it should be audible. And if it's just 8 notes, you should hear a consistent 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and no. And if somebody's late, then it's it's almost like you say it one time and then dot 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 and then you play it one time. Yeah. And it's like it's everything's coming from your brain. If you can't, I mean, how can you? How are you able to say it and not play it unless your hand was like injured or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it all comes from the same place is what I'm saying. So that's really interesting, actually.
Yeah, Dave Vincenzo is a beast. He's a beast. He's super underrated, dude. So many people don't know who he is. He's so good. But you know, that's another thing that, you know, you were talking about linear stuff. Linear playing is another thing I've been spending a lot of time working on lately. And for anybody watching that may not be familiar with the term linear playing, linear simply means no 2 voices are sounding at the same time. So I'm not hitting the kick and the hi-hat at the same time. I'm not hitting the snare and the hi-hat at the same time. Linear just means nothing is occurring at the same time. And so the most basic linear pattern would, of course, be right, left, right, left, right, left, which, as we all know, is just a single stroke roll. Mm-hmm. But you know, I've learned a lot of different ways of applying that. You don't have to play with your hands, you know. You could do left, right with your feet. And that's, of course, the basis of so much heavy metal drumming. But why stop there? You know, you could do hands in your foot, right? You could do right hand, right foot, right, left, 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 left. And that's what I've been practicing a lot lately, is going around the kit with one hand, like just my right hand, for example, and playing, you know, 8th notes, bump, 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 and filling in the 16th note upbeats with the right foot. So you got bump, 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 bump. And it's really, really cool. It's really, really hard. I've still got a lot of practice to do to be able to, you know, play that at the level that I want to be able to play it at.
No, we all.
Really good for improving your accuracy with your feet, because that has been my biggest struggle throughout my entire drumming life, is being able to play consistent, accurate ankle strokes with my feet. I've worked on it so much, thousands of hours practicing ankle strokes.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm still not great at it, you know? So this is something I've been using to work on that recently, because your foot has to play as fast as your hand. So it kind of forces your foot to keep up. And it also, you're playing the 16th note upbeat, so it forces your foot to be a little more conscious of where the timing is, you know, because you're playing upbeats. Upbeats are hard to play.
Right.
So yeah, that's my favorite thing to work on. I've been doing this workout routine every day. The first thing I do when I get behind my kit is play that. Nothing but single strokes between my hands and my feet for about 10 minutes. And then I do singles with the hands and for 10 minutes, and then singles with the feet for 10 minutes. So it's like a 30-minute workout every day. It's really, really good.
That's actually El Estepario Siberiano. That guy actually has a countdown. Like he'll start with 8 on the hands, 8 rights, 8 right hands, 8 right foots,
right,
8 lefts, 8 right foots, 7, 7, 7, 7, 6, 6, 6, 6, and everything. And actually, what's a really, because we're still talking about licks for another minute.
Sure.
Right hand, right foot, left hand, left foot.
Okay.
Start at 8 and descend.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Peter Erskine does something similar. He only does his hands. I think including the feet. That's clever, and that's probably a really good workout, I'm sure.
I can't get. Eventually, I start flamming the hits, or they become double stumps. And that's when I know I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
But it's the hardest lick that I've ever tried. And there's some other stuff I want to do. Like I have Matt Garska just did a seminar. I have all those videos. I'm watching any of them. I have Jason Scott's practice chain PDF and video. Had that for 2 years. Never tried it. I've got some stuff from Hudson Music from a guy, I don't remember his name, just a straight beast on the drum set. And he made like 300 patterns of starting at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just random right, left, right, kick, 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 or right, left, right, kick, kick, left, or whatever, and you just permutations to play around with.
Yeah.
But I would say that's the best one is the best one for me, the brain exercise is right hand, right foot, left hand, left foot, and moving that pattern around the kit. So starting with snare, snare, tom, 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 snare, snare, tom. Somebody have that, you know, hand, foot, hand, foot, hand, foot, hand, foot, hand, foot, hand. You know, it sounds weird when you actually say that. But when you speed it up, what's his face from Between the Buried and Me actually can do it, make it into a closed roll. But he'll play 16th notes on the hands, and he'll play the upbeat 30 seconds with his feet.
Interesting.
So it's just a continuous single stroke roll. But it's something about once you have it clicked, to just slow your hand down. Because if you were playing 16th notes and it was double stop, you were playing, you know, on the right hand or on the hands and the feet were the same. One of those voicings just needs to slow down 1 30-second notes, and you have you have that, which is crazy. And you're like, oh, that sounds really easy. Until you do it, and you're like, oh, well, I guess I suck. I can't make that.
That's something I practiced, not recently, but I practiced last year a good bit. I still need to practice it more. The first person I saw do that was Thomas Lang. I saw Thomas do that in a video once, and it blew my mind. And so I figured Thomas invented it. And so I asked Thomas about it when I was in LA one year, and he got it from Vinny.
Really?
I don't know where Vinny got it from. For those of you that are watching, Vinny is Vinny Colaiuta. Vinny Colaiuta is considered to be the greatest by a lot of really high-level players. I've asked Thomas Lang considers him to be the best. Derek Roddy considers him to be the best. I've asked Johnny Rabb. He considers him to be the best. Vinny's just considered by, like the layman, the average music listener doesn't really consider Vinny to be the best, but all the top-level players think that Vinny's the best of all time. And he's the first person that Thomas ever saw do it.
Really? Okay.
Vinny may have come up with it. Vinny's come up with a lot of cool stuff. But
what about that freaking solo with him and Dave Weckl and Steve Gadd? That's just
dude, the 3-minute
timeless. If you're watching right now and you want to see probably one of the coolest drum solos ever caught on film, just YouTube solo or YouTube drum solo, Vinny, Dave, and Steve. So it's Vinny Colaiuta, Steve Gadd, and Dave Weckl, and they're just.
Yeah. And those are 3 of the best players to ever live. They're so good.
Yep.
And the idea of putting 3 drummers together to perform one solo simultaneously sounds preposterous. How would that ever sound good? And somehow they make it sound good. You know, you'd think that 3 drums, 3 drum sets would be kind of too much, but it's awesome. Really
From a mixing perspective, and I don't know how anal you are about your mixing and stuff like that. Can you imagine mixing 3 drum sets at a live performance?
God, that poor engineer, dude. That guy deserves a raise.
But everybody sounded amazing, and people, and they're playing that same groove. They're playing that heavy quarter note cowbell groove while everything else is going on. So, okay, so let's do. I guess if we have anybody that has any questions that's watching, we can answer some questions. We got a few minutes left.
Sure, yeah. And while you guys, if anybody has any questions, ask us the questions. And while you guys are thinking of anything, I wanted to talk a minute about, excuse me, about time. There's, a really interesting idea that I realized the other day was kind of what I think is the secret to playing with a metronome. And I'll finish that thought in a minute. Owen says, I'm struggling with timing. Well, this is a good question because it's totally relevant to what I was just about to talk about. So,
your mind reader.
Yeah, exactly. I used to think when I was younger that having great time was a function of practice, and to some degree it is. Obviously, the more you practice having good time, the better your time will be. But there's one key secret that no one has ever taught, that I've never learned from anyone before. I've never seen a video on it. I've never heard anyone talk about it. But it's had such a huge impact in my own timekeeping, and that is the concept of active listening versus passive listening, right? Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is, like, let's imagine you're playing a video game, and you've got YouTube on in the background playing, a pop song. You're not actively listening to that music. Your active attention is on the video game. The music is background music, and you either don't notice it or you just kind of halfway pay attention to it, right? Your brain's focusing on the game, not the music. That's passive listening, And when someone's playing to a click, that is what 99% of drummers do, and what I was guilty of when I was playing to a click. And I'm focusing all of my brain power on the groove that I'm playing or on the fill that I'm trying to execute. I'm not focusing my attention on the click. The click is something in the background that I notice, but I'm not specifically focusing on. And that causes you to not necessarily always have the tightest timekeeping. If you can instead focus your brain power to listen to the click and make the click the thing that all of your attention is on, not on your playing. Because if your attention needs to be on your playing in order for you to play it cleanly, you need to go practice what you're doing. If you're, when you're recording, you should be able to play what you're trying to play with minimal effort. And if you can't, then you need to practice more. So you need to focus all of your attention on the click. Because if if you're really focusing on all of your snare backbeats being perfectly in time with the click, even if you're an average drummer with only maybe a year or two of experience, you're still going to be able to do that. Let me
jump in and add something real quick.
Sure.
So on the subject of timing, because I would need to drill down with some more questions on specifically what you're trying to accomplish with timing. So if you want to pop that in the chat, you can. But what I find really helpful, and I haven't done this in a long time, is what's called bearing the click.
Right.
So you're actually playing so tightly with the click you don't even hear it anymore.
Yep, that's the best.
And then and the easiest way to do that is to play, like maybe you play quarter notes on every limb, like a triple stop.
Yeah.
Quarter note on your snare, on your hi-hat, and kick. Wow, all together as close as you can to stay relaxed until you don't even hear that beep, beep, beep anymore. And then you do two more things. Slow down just slightly. So you start flamming with the click. So you're the grace note. And then start when you're the strong note. And then you speed up a little bit and then let the click be the grace note. Okay? And then you just keep on moving back and forth. Because here's the thing, like if you listen to some music, like I know Pharrell does this, he'll actually purposely vary the drums on a track so it doesn't sound like a computer. So it doesn't sound overly consistent. So sometimes you'll have, and if you really want to be a musician, you think James Brown was like, please play like a computer? He's probably like, he was a micromanager, so during the performance, he probably said, you need to lay back. And you need to be able to do that shit on the fly, or like church music or any music with any kind of feeling to it. You should be able to sit on the back of the beat, as they say, or sometimes you need to push it. Sometimes a band's dragging. So you're either locked in a double stop, you're the grace note, or you're the accented note of the flam. But the click is always continuous. But also you can hear, like, sometimes the band's going to train wreck, or sometimes I can feel a train wreck coming.
Right.
And if you're locked into that backbeat, the band could just take a dump, and you could get right back on because you're like I'm used to hearing the click slower or faster. Whereas if you don't practice like that, you'll hear the click slow down. You'll be like, oh my gosh, now I'm going to train wreck because I don't know what to do. I don't know if I'm fast or slow. I don't know if I'm ahead or behind. But then you get to the point where you can make those adjustments, and it's like calling an audible.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. Playing behind the beat is super hard to do correctly for an entire song.
Oh, absolutely.
But the way you're discussing practicing it, that's really interesting. I never thought of that before. You think of it as a flam, and you're the back part of the flam, front part of the flam. That's fascinating, and I'm actually probably going to practice that tomorrow.
And actually, if someone actually told me that, it would have made a lot more sense. But actually, I never even thought of it until right now, explaining it. But you kind of have to be a drummer to like illustrate that. Another thing is, I see a lot of drummers playing with the click being a people say partials and shit like that. It's funny. There's so much jargon for drums.
Yeah.
But take one individual part of the 16th note. So the 1, E, and, or and make that your click. So if this is the tempo, beep, 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 that's the click. So you put the click on the E, and you're like, oh my gosh. So maybe starting on the and is good, but you kind of, I guess it's called displacement or something, but if you can do those two things, and you can just do it cold, and you can alternate, and nothing ever messes you up, when you play with a country band or something like that, or when you play, like, if you got a chart in front of you, whatever, you're just going to be ironclad. I mean, you're going to be an absolute beast, because you're going to be light years beyond the next drummer. I mean, as far as being a working drummer, if that's even a thing now with coronavirus, I don't know. Being a working drummer is even a possibility. But yeah, there's a lot. Kind of makes me want to practice with the click. But I have noticed, and here's I'll take it home here. The practical application. When you want to make videos for Instagram or Facebook or something like that, and you don't play to a click, we can tell. We can tell that you just went crazy and did whatever because you're speeding up and slowing down. So playing with the click can make your video production quality a lot higher too.
Yeah.
What do we got here?
Another question. That's good stuff, fellas. Precision practice, feeling the groove of the click, being on top of the click, just on the backbone behind the beat. Yeah. So what he's talking about is intentionally not playing in time with the click, being very, very close, but not being directly on top of it. The reason for this, now when we say not directly on top of it, I'm only talking like a difference of like 10 milliseconds, okay? So it's very close. But the purpose of this is if you play behind the beat very, very slightly, it gives more of a laid-back feel to the groove. It makes things feel a little lazy and a little slinky, and that sometimes suits the vibe of the song. Whereas if you play in front of the beat, it makes things feel a little bit rushed, a little bit more aggressive, and that sometimes suits the vibes of other songs, you know? And then other times you do want to be directly on top of the click. These are, this is called micro timing. It's a very, very difficult thing to do correctly. But if you can master it, then you will be a great drummer. Because really drums is all about timekeeping. The whole point of the drummer is to play time accurately for the band. You know?
Really funny about what you just said is that the drummer can actually single-handedly influence the feel of the song by where they choose to be on the click, which is crazy. And anyone can do that, but not anybody can influence the timing of the arrangement as much as whoever the rhythm section is. Maybe the bassist. I mean, somebody can kind of go loosey goosey, but if you listen to like Jay Dilla, or you listen to like Chris Daddy Dave, or you listen to some of these other drummers, they are so on the back of the beat. I mean, all the way on the other end of the back of the beat. And it feels amazing to listen to their stuff but they're still in control. That's the thing is if you start dragging, you can really only get away with maybe like one of those. And so for the people on the stream, like we're not talking about dragging where because eventually you're just going to stop, right? Yeah. Eventually you're going to get so slow that the band you're going to fall apart. You have to keep everybody together, but it's like a push and pull. It's like an ebb and flow, and it really adds a lot to. It's like the inflection of your voice. If I just talk like this the whole time, how interesting would that be if it was just robotic? So yeah, drumline, you should be right on top of the click. Speed metal, you should be right on top of the click. If it's soul music or church music or something like that, you should really feel it out. I mean, yeah, it might be better depending on, or maybe you have a guy in the band who always rushes. Well, then I'd be on the back of the beat. I wouldn't be encouraging that motherfucker to speed up. You know, I mean, like, hey, everybody needs to slow down, but you can pull it back and add a little bit of flavor to the music.
Yeah. It's a fascinating subject that we could probably talk about all day.
Well, we probably could.
Well, you know, maybe we should talk about some more detailed stuff on behind and in front of the beat on next week's podcast.
Yeah. I'll make a note of that because that's a really good topic of conversation. Like what is important and what different scenarios that you would want to be. Because I really like to see a video, honestly, of somebody playing to the same track. We'll call it, I hate to use the word lazy, but I would say relaxed, disciplined, and like gasoline or something, you know, cocaine, right, you know, and then be like, see how that influences the feel of the song.
It changes the feel, yeah.
But sometimes it's like you change the song completely, and it sounds better this way with the drums kind of like driving a little bit and it kind of creates almost like a little bit of tension.
Yeah,
it feels really cool. Or it can be extremely annoying and make you want to punch the drummer because they can't play in time and they're always ahead. So it's a fine balance.
And really go over the difference between like behind the beat and dragging, you know. Because they both involve playing slow, which, you know, how do you discern between playing behind the beat in a tasteful way versus just straight up dragging out of time, you know? It's a lot of stuff.
It is such a fine line. That's crazy. All right, so what do we got potentially for next week for our dedicated listeners right now?
I think we can talk about that. I think timing is certainly a valuable subject that we can talk about more. probably the most valuable subject, because that's the point of drums. I also would like to talk about, I was watching Thomas Lang play a different song that I kind of wanted to talk about some of the stuff that he did. So I think that might be fun to talk about, kind of like maybe break down a specific fill that he did, because I find that stuff fascinating. And then maybe go over some more technique stuff, pick a specific technique and talk about the mechanics behind how it works, like maybe the push-pull, maybe the molar method, maybe just straight up ankle strokes, because ankle strokes are so misunderstood. So many people think they understand how to play correct ankle strokes, and most people actually don't. You know, there's some special mechanics behind it that you really need to get down to do it properly. So that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I really like to talk about foot technique after talking today. I think that's something that I don't see a whole lot of people go over at all. A lot of hand technique, but I mean, your foot is an extension of your body. I mean, it plays an essential role, but we hardly ever talk about how to do it correctly. And there's some weird, I hate to throw old Sugarfoot under the bus, but he's got a weird ass foot technique, man. It worked for Michael Jackson, but that does not look natural, and it does not look like it feels good. It looks like he's got some arthritis in his ankle joints. If you watch the foot cam, I mean, it's like 45 degrees off center. I mean, it's really, really strange. But, I mean, he gets a really consistent sound. I know another drummer named Andrea Bassone, or I think that's his name. But he straight up hits it on the side and does heel toe for his doubles. Cleanest doubles I hear online. Just the doubles are just ridiculous. But you look at his foot and you're like, you're just asking to get hurt. I would think like that, but he never has a problem with injury. So, I mean, if it's not broken, don't fix it, I guess.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's a lot of interesting stuff. Guys, we'll be back next Tuesday at the same time, 8 o'clock U.S. Central Time. So I guess we're going to sign off now. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we're going to be talking about some more drums very, very soon.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.